Welcome to the Agility in Real Life podcast, Take 5 in Real Life. Now your hosts, Mike Studeman, Jeff Lee, and Pat Campbell.
Hi, and welcome back to the Take 5 IRL podcast. I'm Jeff Lee, one of your hosts from Agility IRL.
And I'm Mike Studeman, another of your hosts. And we have our relatively new host joining us. Pat, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, Pat Campbell is still the newest. Probably won't change that. And glad to be here.
Good to have you as always, Pat. Jeff, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we had a suggestion come in from our listening community. So talking about Agile with offshore teams.
Yeah, before we get into the topic, a special shout out to Craig Oliver, who suggested this topic. Craig gave us an easy one here, gentlemen. Agile in outsourced teams, along with establishing psychological safety. So in this 99-minute episode, I think we're going to split that up. Hopefully, Craig and our audience is okay with that. We're going to split that up across at least 2 episodes. We'll see how good we are at managing our time boxes. But let's maybe take the first part of Craig's topic suggestion here: Agile in an outsourced environment. Both of you have a great story to tell around that. Pat, why don't you give the audience kind of a setup of the story? What was the challenge here, and how did outsourcing play into it?
Well, this was a fun one, and it actually was the one that Jeff and I met on as we were both playing lead roles in a large engagement. I think we ended up at the peak with about 5 teams. The work was spread across. The interesting thing was that those teams were made up of local independent developers, as well as both local and offshore Big 5 developer and an offshore developer. And you can imagine some of the interesting challenges with that kind of blending. The client we were working with wanted the best of the best and at the best price. So it was a mix and match. Psychological safety is a bit of a challenge there, especially when the management that wasn't part of the team for those vendors were pushing those team members to represent their company, sometimes to the detriment of delivery of product. And so it took some work on Jeff and my part to mitigate that.
One of
Jeff,
this is the point. Sorry, Jeff, I'll bring in here. This is the point in which we should probably flash up what you're about to hear. Names have been changed, protect the innocent or the guilty. And maybe we even need a parental advisory label on the whole episode, given what the setup that Pat just gave us, because that sounds, to quote some of my older colleagues, pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it was. And to be honest,
how'd you get them out of that?
So we spent a lot of time thinking about how to set up the teams. As Pat mentioned, we had independents. We had 2 different vendors that had presence locally and offshore in 2 different offshore cities. And the way that we set them up is to get all of those people on each team. So in other words, we had, of those 5 teams, each team had local independents. Each team had people from both vendors. Those people were dedicated to that team, and they had peers on all of the other teams. And so there was no us versus them putting up, wearing the company colors. It was everybody was working together. As Pat mentioned, we had to break through some of our vendors delivering this. It's like, no, your vendor's not delivering that. Your team is delivering that. And so it was one of those things where success breeds success. As teams were able to work and deliver things, it was easier for us to talk to the vendor management and say, see what's happening here? You're adding value to your client. And the client was saying, this is what we want. So it made a huge difference.
So it's really, I think the key takeaway here to the setup that Craig gave us was make sure that you stay focused on the delivery of value, not on how to make your employer look good, because your employer will look good if you actually delivering value.
Yeah. And the other thing that helped it, to be honest, Pat and I were not the heroes here, right? We had people on the teams working as Scrum developers who were really holding each other accountable to focus on the team. So there were really strong leaders on each of the teams that were really aligned with what we were trying to accomplish, what the global we was trying to accomplish. They held each other accountable, and that actually having that positive conflict help breed psychological safety because it was within the confines of the teams they were having those conversations.
So I heard a
Yeah.
couple of key takeaways there, and then I'll bring you in, Pat. I heard leadership at all levels being key, and the second one escapes me, but Pat, maybe you have it.
Well, the team members' interest and excellence and focus on the product and the product of the team, I think was that second one. But providing that initial psychological safety as servant leaders was important, and it was the combination of the two that I think really, in retrospect, made it successful. It wasn't a straight line or an easy path, but that investment paid off.
Yeah.
Well, I remembered. Oh, sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, just one other note is we had for 3 of those teams a really strong Scrum Master, and his 100% job was being a Scrum Master for those teams. He did not have other things to do outside of that. So again, that dedicated Scrum Master, he handled 3 teams. He was very experienced and very strong. Made a huge difference.
Well, I think we've given our audience some good tips. Can the title of this episode be Jeff and Pat, We're No Heroes?
That'd be redundant with all the other episodes, but we could.
I'm lobbying. Thanks for sharing your insights, and hopefully the audience got a little value out of that. We'll be back with another episode on this very topic soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Take5IRL podcast. If you like it, please go ahead and share it with someone, as well as like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Also, leave us a comment or a suggestion for a future episode. Again, thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us next time on the Take5IRL podcast.